Dark times paralyze most people, but some very few, for reasons most of us will never understand, or able to set aside, never to understand, are able to set aside all caution and do things even they could not imagine themselves doing in ordinary times. It is hard to talk about a bright spot in the horror that is the rape of Nanking. But if one can, it is surely to shine a light on the action of a small band of Americans and Europeans who risked their lives to defy the Japanese invaders and rescue hundreds of thousands of Chinese refugees from almost certain extermination. These courageous men and women created the International Committee for the Nanking Safety Zone. And incidentally, there was a very prominent figure in her book, a German businessman by the name of John Rabe, R-A-B-E. And he was from Hamburg. And so when we had the premiere, we invited his family. He had passed away already. So his family to attend the event. So that was very, I think his grandchildren that came to the concert. So similarly, I also believe my composition should also be about the humanity and the compassion of mankind and the true triumph of human strength and courage. And then from those 2 points of view, two sides provided a balance of the two main elements in this work. And also what's interesting about that is in Chinese traditional Chinese classical music, for pipa, for example, and there are two genres or categories of repertoire. And one is called a wenqu, means more feminine and delicate and lyrical side of the music. And the other side is the opposite. Wuqu means more masculine and military or martial. And so I also use those two kind of balance and to tell my story in this work. In this, the other thing I want to say is because I was kind of late in meeting the deadline for this work, even though I was booked to write this piece from 1998, but I had other things, So by the time I had got onto this piece, I had about 2 months left. So, and it's writing a long, this work is about 25 minutes. So for 25 minutes, 2 months is a very short time for big orchestral work. So I had to really react quickly about what to do with the piece. And the first thing, for composers, the first and foremost is the structure of the piece. Because when you go to a concert, what you hear is the sound or noise, whatever you like to call it. But with the sound, with the music, and the only thing that holds the shape or structure or form, as you will, is the sound. And so that's the most important for me. So because I had very little time to kind of mull over and what to do and try this, try out, that. And so I thought maybe I can borrow one existing form, which turned out to be, I think, is quite effective, which is the form of a large from large arias from traditional Chinese opera, like the Peking opera or Qing opera, which, in my opinion, in turn was either borrowed from or heavily influenced by a classical Chinese music form known as Tang Dachi, literally meaning a large music form from the Tang Dynasty, in which in its turn came from Mukang music. I discovered that through my research of the Silk Road cultures, that Mukang music is a classical music form from Central Asia. And as we know, during the Tang Dynasty, which is the peak of the Silk Road phenomenon, and Mukang music was brought, the Central Asian music was brought into China. And I think, although I'm not a musicologist, I don't have any concrete proof, but I could see the similarity from that form, from the Mukang music. And I'll explain what is the Mukang form. And that was kept through a Chinese classical music form, which is the Chinese opera. And we can still trace that form in large arias of a Chinese opera. So essentially, this form, it starts with a slow section, very slow section, is a narrative and meterless, which means you don't really feel the pause of the tempo. You don't feel the beats, so to speak. And it's narrative and free. And then it gets into the very slow section we call largo, which means a very slow, but you start to feel the pause, but very slow tempo. And then gets a little faster. We go to andante, and then the next thing is even faster, allegro. At the end, we go to presto, which is very fast. And then on the peak of that presto, and it will break loose again. So that's kind of the Chinese opera aria form. And I borrow that, and you can hear a little bit when the pipa enters. It starts with this very loose and narrative kind of music, and then gets to be slow and gradually get faster, and you hear that. So now I would like to introduce our guest pipa player, because I would like you to hear the pipa live performance rather than hear on the recording. We are very fortunate today. We have a guest artist. I think I lost her bio. It's been too long. Anyway, so this is Sheng Zhang. She lives in the Bay Area. She is actually a classmate of the pipa player who's featured on the CD, which you will be here. And the pipa player on the CD, his name is also Zhang, but they're not related. And Zhang is like, common name in Chinese, and in China, everybody, many Zhangs. Shenzhen is from this area, came to this country about 5 years ago. In China, she had worked with many important organizations. In this country, she also worked recently with the Houston Grand Opera and many orchestras in the Bay Area. And she teaches the Chinese Youth Orchestra in San Jose. And she's part of the San Francisco Symphony's Adventure in Music, AIM program, which is the education outreach program for the symphony. So we're very honored to have her join us. So she's going to do some samples of the wenqu and the wuqu. Again, wenqu is the form that is a more feminine, delicate, and lyrical. that piece is called loosely, a Chinese translation for English, is moonlight reflections on a lake. Yeah. So the next part is the martial art kind of piece, which is we call, this piece is called Ambush from 10 Sides. And it's about a battle. It's a description of a battle, and it's part of the Chinese, one of the treasures of Chinese classical music. That was quite something. You see, I don't have to do much. I can borrow all that. That's what composers do. You borrow, and you hear a lot of borrowing from this. And you can call it stealing, but they are not copyrighted because these are Chinese, old Chinese music. Okay, so now we're going to play this piece. Before I do, I would like to ask your indulgence for one thing, because it's a very dramatic piece. So be careful. There are heart attacks. If you have a heart problem, you be careful. And okay, so. And so this is sort of the basic descriptions when I had thought would help you to follow the piece. So I will have these words projected when the music was playing with different sections and so forth.